Hey everybody, it's Raleigh. It's Live Forever Young Radio time. I am here with Bob Gilpatrick. How you doing, Bob?
Good, Raleigh. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It is the middle of October, and I've been seeing on the news and been made very aware that it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Every October, everybody puts on their pink, does their walks and runs for cancer prevention and early detection. So we've talked a little bit about it before. We decided we wanted to talk about it because it seemed appropriate.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. So tell us, Raleigh, when did this first come about, the breast cancer awareness?
I'm glad you asked. I did a little research. So when Breast Cancer Awareness Month started and why? The event started as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October of 1985. It was a partnership between American Cancer Society and the Pharmaceutical Division of Imperial Chemical Industries to promote mammograms as the most effective tool to fight breast cancer, which is a very important thing. Definitely, I hear it's around 40 is when you should start having that done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting there. It involves the Imperial Chemical Industries, ICI, they call it for short.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad worked for the Imperial Chemical Industries in Switzerland.
Really?
Yeah.
That's I did not know that.
And he was in the agricultural division because ICI was inventing, and this relates directly to cancer, ICI was inventing new types of pesticides that were less toxic and were mimics of the way that plants actually defend themselves against pests.
Really?
And they came out with the first type of pesticide that worked that way.
Wow.
And I also worked for the Imperial Chemical Industries, but I worked for a different person than my father.
That's
I worked
crazy.
For one of his colleagues.
I did not even know that.
Yeah, so ICI is a very diverse company, and they do all kinds of different things. A big chemical company, international company.
Okay.
And I worked for them in the United States at a different time than when my dad worked for them there.
You know, we didn't even go over this before the show. This is great.
No, we didn't.
This is brand new knowledge to me.
So later on, we're going to talk about toxins and how they cause cancer.
Yep.
And pesticides is a really big one. And we'll talk about how to get them out of your body because you've probably been accumulating them for years.
Yes. A lot of people rinse it off, but, you want to make sure that you're trying to get it without it on it at all, and there's other ways to do it. But we'll talk about that. Couple quick statistics I just wanted to go over with everybody. About 600,000 people in the U.S. die each year from cancer. Right? Worldwide, if you look at throughout the whole world, it's about 15 times as many. Instead of 600,000, it's more like 6 million. So this is something that a lot of people have probably been affected by. I know I have family members who have had cancer, gotten over it. We actually just had a very famous survivor of cancer pass away, Miss Suzanne Summers. I loved watching her on Step by Step as a kid, and she had a very good book that she, came out with that talked about her journey through that time in her life and the things that she learned, which, is very important things. A couple of things we're going to talk about. She talked about, we'll talk about later, specifically with diet. But yeah.
So in regard to toxins, this is one great way that you can help to prevent cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that people have a whole plan for preventing cancer. It not only helps with preventing cancer, but the same plan will help with many other potential diseases as well.
Your overall health in general.
And yes, and in the case of cancer, you want to know as soon as possible if you are developing cancer. The earlier you know about it, the better.
Mm-hmm.
The higher your chances of
survival.
And a cure for cancer is depending how soon they catch it, because cancer tends to spread, and it'll spread to different parts of your body that circulate.
Mm-hmm.
So if it gets into your blood, your lymph fluid, your cerebral spinal fluid, it's going to migrate and it's going to affect other parts of your body, including vital organs that may end up causing death.
Right.
And so, but not only to detect it early the first time. But if you've ever had cancer, you want to make sure that you catch it if it recurs.
Yes.
You want to catch it as soon as you possibly can, and there's special tests for that, for people that have survived cancer.
Right.
Sometimes the cancer will come back with a vengeance, and they end up dying when they get it the second time.
Right.
And
the recurrence of it.
There's a book about that. It's called "Cancer Free Are You Sure?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's written by a nurse who had cancer, and it came back again, and they did not have the right testing for her to catch it really early. And so she ended up doing all the research on the more advanced tests, the new tests, and she wrote this book called Cancer Free Are You Sure?
Mm-hmm.
And so people can have access to the information about the test so that you catch it very early.
Yes, my aunt just recently got over throat cancer, and she's fairly old, but she was able to get over it very, very effectively because they caught it so early. She was getting checkups and everything, and she was also having issues swallowing, which she never had that problem before. And so when she realized that, she went and had it checked, and they were able to detect it, and she went and she did her treatments, and actually she was taking her barley a lot during that whole thing. It helps to give you strength through those treatments and keep your muscles from wasting and stuff like that. A lot of antioxidants in it, so that was very helpful as well. But either way.
Good. And make sure she has the book.
Yes.
Cancer Free Are You Sure?
Yes.
Yeah. In regard to toxins, one of the main things that causes toxicity that the CDC talks about as one of the primary causes of cancer is people eating overcooked meat.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or meat cooked on dry heat. So you might have, say, a piece of chicken that you've cooked, and you don't think it's overcooked because it's not burnt and it's not all dried out. But in regard to preventing cancer, it could very well be overcooked.
Right.
And if you cook any meat that is cooked in dry heat over 300 degrees, it's going to create toxicity.
Right.
Because the sugar and the fat that is in the meat under that type of heat will combine together, and it creates a toxin in that combination. And so so dry heat means baking, broiling, barbecuing, right? So instead of dry heat, you want to use some liquid or keep the temperature below 300 degrees. So a slow cooker.
Yeah.
So a much better way to cook chicken would be at 200 degrees and in some type of a broth in a slow cooker.
I love that stuff.
And it'll actually taste better.
Yeah.
It takes a longer time to cook,
but
6 hours as opposed to an hour, but it's going to taste better, and it won't have those glycotoxins in it.
Now you're talking about, even if you're, because I think the misconception here, even sometimes I have, is like when you barbecue something, you get that black outside. That black outside's not the char marks. That's not good. But you're saying even without that,
right? Even without that, all throughout the chicken will be glycotoxins if it's cooked over 300 degrees
because of
without liquid
of the dry heat.
Right. The liquid blocks the glycating event.
Okay.
So if you're going to bake chicken, for example, you want to have broth in your dish that you're going to bake it in.
Okay.
So it creates a steam during the cooking process.
Cool. You're making me hungry. Okay, I got you. I got you.
So that's a really big one right there. That's not to be overlooked. Some people will hear this and they'll be like, big deal. Well, it could be a very big deal.
Yeah.
Right? Because some people eat meat constantly every day, 2-3 times a day.
Right.
And if it's cooked the wrong way, you're going to be at very high risk for cancer.
Somebody will say, what about deep frying chicken? Is that
deep frying is actually worse.
Okay.
Yeah, because the deep frying is very hot to begin with.
Super hot.
And when you cook oils, unless you have very specific equipment and you know exactly what you're doing, the oil you fry it in is going to be laden with trans fats.
Oh, yes, of course,
Right.
trans fats.
And so trans fats are very,
Of
very
course.
difficult to process. They cause cancer. And so the deep frying is actually the worst way to do it. Right?
Gotcha.
Now, you can, if you're living in Europe, they eat a lot of fried food in places like Belgium and France,
Yeah.
but they know how to cook it properly.
Okay.
So they have kettles that are heated with a computer system where the flame is very small at the beginning. The oil starts at room temperature, and it takes a whole hour to get it up to 350 degrees.
So it's a slower process.
And it doesn't flip the fats into a trans fat.
Gotcha.
So they start with oil that's no trans fats, right? But if you heat oil up very quickly to 350 degrees, just like that, it's all trans fats. And if you heat it up slowly, too many times, it's going to become trans fats.
Gotcha.
So what they do is they have a device that they put into the oil, and it checks the polarization of the bonds
Gotcha.
in the oil.
Okay.
And they know if it's a cis fat or a trans fat.
Wow.
And then when it flips to be a trans fat, that's when they throw the oil out.
Now that's I don't think people have that equipment at their home.
They don't have it at their home. I used to own a fry shop like that.
Mm.
It was called Fry It Right. It was in New York, right? And we made Belgium fries, that way.
Mm.
And we actually had a famous celebrity chef from Holland come to New York. And they called him the Frying Dutchman, and he had a television show.
Oh my gosh!
So the Frying Dutchman came to New York and taught my chefs how to fry food the right way, and we had the polarization.
I'm learning some stuff about you today. The ICI chemical company and all this. Fry It Right, man. I love it. Okay,
there you go.
So what's the next?
So the next one is
shoes in the house.
Shoes.
I got to talk about this because I have to tell you, when I hear this, it makes me go, really? I've been keeping my shoes in my house forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the other main things is leaving your shoes in your house, and you don't really think about it. Sometimes maybe if they get wet and they get stinky, you leave them outside, let them dry out. But you don't really think about it any other time because you can't smell the off-gassing of the things that you've walked through all day. I mean, you're walking on, I don't know about where everybody else is, but there's parking lots, and they spray this black stuff to recoat them on there. Mm-hmm. That's horribly toxic. And then you walk through that, and then you bring it into your house, and then you walk through, there's tire dust. I mean, I could imagine there's so many things.
Pesticides is a really big one. People are spraying lawns with pesticides, and the drift gets on the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
Your shoes pick it up, and it off gases in the evening while your shoes are in the closet or whatever, and you're breathing that in all night long. Equally toxic and dangerous as overcooking your meat.
Okay, so shoes outside.
Mm-hmm. Another big one is funguses.
Ooh, the fungus among us.
Yeah, so there's a famous author named Doug Kaufman who writes books about fungus.
Love Doug.
And Doug's a really, really astute scientific mind who's done a really big favors for the world writing these books about the dangers of fungus. And so you have to watch in your household and at your workplace to make sure that there isn't mold growing in places where it's damp,
especially in Florida, places that are humid environments that often get wet. Like we just had not even a hurricane come through. 100 miles off the coast, there was a hurricane, and it flooded out an entire area, Sunset Beach.
Yeah,
it went from the Gulf all the way to the bay, and there's houses in between. Every one of them got flooded.
Right.
And that's the type of thing that if you don't do the proper mold remediation, removal of this, lower drywall or whatever it is, you're going to have problems,
Yeah.
And you can't see it.
And we've had lots of customers that have come to us and who have mold issues.
Yes.
Okay, for me personally, and Larry, business partner,
this is a great
when
story.
we first started taking our barley product, we were told that it's going to detoxify you. And one of the things that started happening after about 6 weeks is both Larry and I noticed that the white shirts we were wearing were turning black. They were getting black stains.
Yeah.
And we could smell the mold coming out of our skin.
Mm.
It was coming out of our arms, our back. Mine was coming out of my forehead.
Mm.
And it lasted for about 6 weeks before all that black mold came out. And we called Ken, who created the barley product for us, and he simply said, "Oh yeah, that's the black mold coming out of your body. Don't wear any white shirts because you'll never get that mold out of those white shirts."
That's
And so people are infected with mold. Everybody is. We live on a mold planet. There's more mold on this planet than any other living thing.
that's true.
And so we're constantly exposed to it. It's not all bad mold, but a lot of it is. And you don't even know that you have a massive mold infection in your body until you get sick from it.
Yes.
Or you take a product like Gladiator barley and all the mold starts coming out.
Right.
And you realize how much mold you had.
And, some people say, well, how would I know if I have mold in me? I think it's sluggishness, lethargia, problems with cognitive thoughts a lot of the times, always being confused and things like that are things to look for.
Onset of autoimmune diseases.
Correct, right.
Also, same thing.
Very cool.
So another big one, probably, and some scientists and doctors believe this is the main cause of cancer.
Right.
Is they say it's a metabolic disease, meaning your metabolism, your creation of energy system is not working properly, and in every cell you have energy powerhouses called mitochondria.
Right.
And they are converting the food that you eat into energy,
right.
into an electrical chain called the electron transport chain. And the energy that our body has is from the food and the conversion of it in the mitochondria, and also from light.
Gotcha.
And some people believe that more of it comes from light than it does from food. Our bodies are constantly exposed to light, and it's passing through our body, and we have photoreceptors on the surface of our mitochondria that are absorbing those photons. And particularly your brain is powered by light. So a very good way to help prevent brain cancer is to make sure you have enough electricity in your brain. And the way that occurs is there's a fatty acid, a good fatty acid that's not overcooked.
Right.
It's called DHA, and it's in fish oil.
Right.
And so when people take fish oil capsules, it increases their DHA. The DHA, it helps to make up the cell wall of the cones and rods in your eyes. And when light hits your eyes, that DHA absorbs that light, this photonic light, and converts it into electrons, makes it electricity. It's like photosynthesis, like a plant, right? And that molecule, DHA, is an ancient molecule. There's evidence of it existing 2 billion years ago.
Right.
And it hasn't changed.
Same thing.
Most molecules change over time with changes in the Earth's atmosphere, changes in the electromagnetic field of the Earth, etc.
Adapt.
DHA has never changed.
Interesting.
It's been the same since its inception. And so you want to make sure you have enough DHA in your diet or in your supplements to power your brain.
DHA isn't produced by the body.
No.
So it must be taken in through diet.
You're taking it in through diet.
So whether it's food or a good supplement is very good. I know people that say, doctors and such, if you can only take one thing, take a good omega.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can only take one thing, at least take that.
Yes.
So
and so this theory of cancer being a metabolic disease is saying basically that when the mitochondria malfunction for various reasons, toxins being one we talked about,
right,
then the cell itself becomes dysfunctional and can easily become cancerous or easily co-opted by another cancer cell.
It's susceptible. It can be persuaded to turn to the dark side.
Yes, exactly.
We don't want
that.
So
mitochondrial health, incredibly important. You want to make sure that you're free of toxins as much as possible, that you don't have an excess of things that your body needs, like iron.
Yeah, we talked a lot about iron,
which will damage your mitochondria.
Yes.
And you also want to make sure that the process of converting food into energy is facilitated with the right substrates, with the B vitamins, coenzyme Q10, so that the cycle keeps moving and creates energy.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the right substrates to make these multiple conversions in that cycle, then it stalls out, and that damages the mitochondria.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
and the other big one is inflammation in general. So the iron creates inflammation. High iron creates inflammation. The mitochondria is making ATP, and it throws off waste products, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Just like with anything, a car, you have exhaust.
Right. And so in this case, hydrogen peroxide. And when it combines with iron, it creates a free radical that's very, very damaging to the wall of the mitochondria. So the mitochondria has its own wall, and it's a double thick lipid membrane, so to speak, and it's very easily damaged by free radicals, and you create massive amounts of them if your iron is high.
Okay.
So you always want to get your iron checked.
Iron is very important. A lot of people don't talk about that. Most people think about low iron or anemia, but high iron is actually could be worse.
Yeah, high iron is definitely leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, which is what the scientists are saying is leading to cancer.
Right. So
take care of your mitochondria. We have a whole podcast.
The Mighty Mitochondria. Absolutely. Actually, I have it up on the screen. Visit boomerboost.com for more podcasts. We've got the one about the Mighty Mitochondria. We've actually got a couple different ones about exercise, and where we are going to now was, I mentioned earlier, Suzanne Summers, she talked specifically about diet and how important it is to avoid things that can cause inflammation. Yeah. Like we were just talking, inflammation, and we also have a podcast about that. So check that out. But inflammation we could see is like the silent killer. It's the root of many of these chronic diseases, cancer being one of them, heart disease. I could go on, diabetes. It just go on, list a mile long, so we won't do that. But
what you can do about it.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, what you can do about it is use antioxidants.
Yep.
So for every free radical that causes inflammation and damage, there's an antioxidant. Mm-hmm. So the antioxidants that you need are superoxide dismutase. You need compounds that are in our total health system.
Right.
Some of them are in the barley, some of them are in the Boomer Boost, and they act to reduce your inflammation and keep your free radical damage down. That's probably the most important thing you can do for cancer prevention, is to keep your inflammation down.
Right, and we talk about it a lot. We're talking about the CRP level. For those of you who say, well, how do I know how do I know if I've got a lot of inflammation? Talking about C-reactive protein level. You can get that checked, but it's not in your normal, the test that the doctors do. So make sure you get the CRP level checked. That will give you an idea of what type of inflammation you're dealing with. It's usually a lot higher in people with diabetes and other chronic disorders.
Yep. So in regard to the diet, it's very important you know what to avoid.
Oh, yeah, that's the main thing.
Because still to this day, 25% of all the calories consumed in the United States is from drinking soda pop.
Yep.
And that doesn't even count other sugary drinks or all the candy. It's a Halloween
time. Yep.
And that sugar creates a lot of excess inflammation. Mm-hmm. And so you have to understand where the sugar is that you're taking in.
Yep.
A lot of it's hidden sugar that's in processed foods and other things.
One of the things I talk about with people is when they see the words no added sugar, they're like, oh, well, this is good. But meanwhile, there's already 20 grams of sugar in the drink you're drinking.
Right. Naturally.
So, like that's what's already in there. So they don't need to add to it. Yep. It's not really, it's not a benefit or a feature. It's just they didn't put any more in.
That's right. And so there's a really good book called The Sugar Impact Diet.
J.J. Virgin.
Absolutely. And that shows you where the hidden sugars are. So if you're serious about keeping your sugar low and keeping your inflammation low, that's one of the things you're definitely going to want to do. And as we mentioned before, avoid overcooked meats, right? Make sure you don't eat too much meat that's high in iron. Otherwise, you're going to have to be constantly checking your iron and donating blood to reduce it if need be.
Yep.
Right?
Be careful on the iron.
And another big one, Raleigh, is the issue of circulation.
Yes.
Because we can go to a lot of trouble to take in antioxidants.
Right.
And to take in good fats, like
nutrition.
DHA.
Yeah.
But if our circulation is poor, they won't get to your cells.
No.
Those things, including oxygen. Right. So oxygen is necessary for the Krebs cycle. To create energy, it requires oxygen. And a lot of people are low in oxygen, especially to their periphery, to their feet, hands, and their brain. A lot of theory about dementia. A primary cause of dementia is poor circulation to the brain. So we have another podcast on circulation.
Yes,
that people can watch.
Definitely boomerboost.com. A lot of the things we're touching on, we're just kind of touching on them because we wanted to give you an idea of where to start looking as far as prevention of cancer. But we have a lot of podcasts that cover these individual topics at boomerboost.com. So please check those out. Another thing we deal with all the time here is the idea of old age, getting old. Just getting old can kind of be something that is a precipitous for cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as people age, a lot of the things we're talking about tend to diminish. Your output of energy, your circulation, etc., and an accumulation of toxins over time, lead to it may becoming much more likely that you'll get cancer the older you are. But doing the things that we're talking about here, the testing, the avoidance of toxic foods, paying attention to the veracity of your mitochondria, paying attention to your circulation.
Putting your shoes outside, not overcooking the meat.
And it could be that, you could live to be very, very old. There's a lady who's 114 years old who lives in Texas, and she's never had cancer.
There you go.
So it is possible to live that way.
Absolutely.
But the older you get, the more you want to pay attention.
Right, because of the fact that you're kind of not creating as many of the things that battle it, right?
Yep.
Circulation gets poor.
Yep. And the exercise, we have to remember, really important, because that helps with your circulation.
You read my mind. I was going to say, I was just getting to that. So as you get older, right, you're not creating as much antioxidants. Your muscles start to waste. We did a show about that just recently, muscle wasting. And exercise is going to be the thing that gets the muscles, it gets the circulation going. Muscles relate a lot to bone health, right? Keeps your bones strong. So exercise is extremely important in order to get the circulation of all those nutrients and vitamins and minerals and all the things you're intaking to be used. What's the point of taking them if they're just literally sitting there and not going anywhere? You're not going to use them. Yep. Amen.
I think that's it.
I think we covered everything. Let's look through all these millions of papers.
We covered all the most important parts, and if people want to know more, search out the blog posts and the podcast that are on our site.
Yep, boomerboost.com. I got it up on the screen. You can also go, when you go there, you'll see at the top, or if you're on a mobile, down the side, it'll say podcasts and blogs. We also have a self-care section that goes over a lot of really good techniques for self-care as far as, anxiety and stress. So check that out. And right now, actually, just while I'm thinking about it, we are running our fall savings sale, where if you spend $150 or more, you get 15% off. Plus, there's free shipping on every order, regardless of price in the United States. So check that out. But apart from all those really good things and going over this, and happy Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I think that's it, my friend.
Yep. Thank you, Raleigh.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to Live Forever Young Radio Live. We'll see you next week.